everybody. I am here with Lindsey today, who you may know from TikTok with her cute little horse Rascal. And we are going to chat about Rascal today. So, Lindsey, do you want to introduce yourself and how you started with horses?
Sure. My name is Lindsay Highland. I live currently in Rhode Island. I'm originally from Connecticut, so I'm a New England girl. I've been riding horses probably longer than I can ever have my ever first memory walking. I've had ponies literally all my life. My mom got me into riding when I was very, very little. One of the favorite memories of my parents were I broke out of the I think it's like a pack and play that they had, and I decided to take the pony down the road for a walk. So I've been around horses like pretty much for well over 30 plus 40, 30 plus flight years. So ever since I can remember, there's always been a horse.
That's amazing. That's so fun. How did you come to find Rascal?
So I feel like a lot of horse stories start this way. Somebody comes up to you and they go, "So there's this horse." And they tend to look for I don't want to say the suckers because I got a big old heart, so I'm all about the rescues. I used to have off the track thoroughbreds for many years, did a lot of restarts and whatnot. When I lost my thoroughbred when I was, oh man, 2 days before Christmas, I took a little break and then got back into jumping and got back into off the tracks again. And then I took another break and actually started driving horses. So I got introduced to the draft world, which was a wonderful change and completely different than off the tracks and jumpers and hunter jumpers and whatnot. Kind of a sad story, but a friend of mine passed away and he had a Brabant and a Percheron that he did orchard wagon rides. And when he died, his horses went to a mutual friend of ours who also had Belgians and also did orchard and wagon rides. So he reached out to me and said, "Are you interested in learning how to drive horses?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I ride. What a wonderful thing. Let's do another discipline." So he taught me how to drive, and I would, do autumn, fall, winter, or autumn, fall, and winter wagon rides. And in the summer, we'd play with the horses and ride. Well, my neighbor came up to me because she knew I started with the draft work, and she said that her daughter. It's a kind of a long story, but her daughter was friends with another woman that she worked with, and from what I understand, is that she bought this horse like without having any knowledge of horses at all. So first red flag. Did I listen? No. So she sent me pictures of this horse, Rascal, and he had the sweetest and kindest eye. And I said, "All right, I got to go see him because he looks really, really cute." So getting information from the woman that owned him was like pulling teeth. And she basically summarized and said, "Well, I'm moving. I can't take care of him. He's never been broke. He's not, he's halter trained and we brush him and such. But like, she's like, I haven't even seen him in 4 years." And that broke my heart. So the sucker in me said, "Well, let me go check him out." And part of me was like, "Well, this is good. He hasn't been started. So this is a project. This might be fun. Will I drive him? Maybe. Will I ride him? I don't know." She just told me he was a draft of sorts. So I went to go check him out. He was about 20 minutes from where I lived. He lived on a cow farm with a bunch of cows and donkeys in another shire. And I saw him and I fell in love immediately. And I said, "That's it. I'll buy him." I had no idea if he would trailer. I didn't even do a PPE. He was the sweetest and kindest horse probably I've ever met. To make it official, I had him go to the vet to get or had the vet come down to do rabies and Coggins, and I bought him for $1 to make the sale legal. And it took about 10 minutes for him to get on the trailer, but he got right on, and we drove down to the farm, and that was it. He became mine.
10 minutes is not that bad for a horse coming out of a field. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and they did very little work with him. Like, it was very evident. The farmer that was taking care of him was an elderly man who just had a heart attack, and he said, he's like, "You'll never get a blanket on him. You'll never get a saddle on him." So right away I was like, "Okay, game on. Like, bet. Like like this is going to be a great challenge. I'm going to check this out." But yeah, it took about 10 minutes, just some grain, and he walked on willingly, and he came right off without any issues, no explosion, nothing. And he initially got introduced to a herd of about two Belgians, the Percheron and the Brabant. So he kind of melded in the first night until the disaster struck the next day.
Oh no, what happened the next day?
So that $1 turned into 2,000 real quick. I went to go check on him. He was in one of the fields, and I don't know if he got a barbed wire or something across the back of his right, underneath his right hock, but he came in dead lame, three-legged lame. His whole right leg was completely swollen, and I just said, "Oh, great! This horse that I had all this promise I thought was going to be fantastic. I'm now going to have to put down." My vet came out, did an ultrasound. Turned out everything actually looked okay, except that he had some significant lymphedema. So I learned real quick too. He probably was never vetted. He has a legit fear of needles. He's probably the most needle phobic horse I've ever had. But we did have to pretty sedate him and put an IV in his neck, and I became his human nurse, IV pump, giving him IV antibiotics twice a day. But we during that time we really really obviously bonded because you're with him the entire time. So that took about a good, I would say, a good month to really get him to feeling a little bit where he wasn't lame and healing. And I kind of in that month, I kind of made peace with this. I was like, well, that things happen, and if I don't ride, I don't ride. If I don't drive, I mean, he's a sweet horse and he's getting a second chance, so we'll see what happens. But he totally blew me away. So after he got injured and I got the okay, I took a whole year of breaking him, like just desensitizing him, throwing grain bags on him, throwing like shavings bags on him. I had kids come over, play with him, touch him, brush him, torture him with love. He had sparkly hooves at one point, and he just totally blossomed into this awesome horse. And unfortunately, this is also right when COVID started in 2020. So I'm a nurse. I work in critical care, and the part of Rascal's story, and I apologize if I get emotional or cry because
No, please, you're
um,
fine.
COVID is one of the worst times of my entire career. I was a paramedic for 17 years before. I was being a paramedic and a nurse at the time during COVID, and it is by far one of the worst things I've ever experienced. I would come home so emotional and scared, very scared. But Rask was like there because even though he needed me too, like he kind of let me unload all that emotional stress and everything I was feeling, and I took those times to that where he needed me to really decompress. I just because I again when I got him, it was June of 2019, and again also they told me he was 12, and when my vet did the vet check on him after he got hurt, she's like, Lindsay, this horse is 6 at the most. So then I got really excited. I was like, oh, maybe he can heal. Like this is going to be a good thing. So during that whole year of doing COVID, and like it was like kind of like training like a baby at the same time. Those days where I spent with him, just being able to get away from the stress of being in the hospital and being around so much death and illness and sickness and understaffed, and the patient population just the patient load just got heavier and heavier. He lifted that weight off of me. Sorry.
No, please don't
No.
apologize.
Well, that's why when I made the TikTok about him, it was because, well, I was saving his life, but in turn, he was actually saving mine. So,
They do that. They sneak up on you. No, I totally relate to this. The first time I ever rode Jules, who, like, this was before he was even my horse. Like, the first time I rode him after my mom bought him, I was going to get on him, and I got the call from my dad that my grandmother had passed away. And, like, I've always said, like, he came into my life right when I needed him. And it sounds like that was exactly your experience with Rascal, which is so lovely.
what's amazing about him is and since that time, whether I was going to ride him or not, because again, I wasn't going to ever push him to a point where he would ever be hurt again, and I didn't want to break him. I didn't want to hurt him, but I said, I'm going to make this horse the people's horse. And so many people would just come to him and just put their head on him or pet him or brush him, and they're like, this is the therapy that nobody can provide them. And anywhere you go, it's like when we now that he's, I mean, spoiler, he's broke. After about a year of all that time off, I finally backed him, and he was perfect. And when I made that TikTok that went viral, we were going into our first show season. People would go at horse shows that, oh, Rascal's here. And like, I remember there's one girl in particular, she has her own horses, and she got she was having a really bad show. Like, for her, she was having a bad show. She wasn't pitting well, barn fights with her barn and whatnot. But I'm good friends with her dad. He's a firefighter, so I'm good friends with him. And she just went into Rascal's stall and cried. Like, she has her own horse, but and Rascal was like, okay, go ahead, kid. Let it out. And then the next day she won everything. So it's just the power of horses in therapy is just so, I sometimes I think it's underrated or maybe underappreciated. I'm not sure. But if you ever meet Rask in person, he's extremely special. Like, he just knows how to make you feel so much better.
Oh, I believe it. What was it like when you started backing him?
Oh man, you know how you start to grow trust and you're like, baby steps, first of all. Everything I did was major baby steps. He never ran away from me. And I took it, like I said, I took it extremely slow. I One of the things I did to train, besides obviously ground working him, is I tied jugs with rocks in them and tied him to the stirrups. So he would get used to noise and the feeling of things banging across his side. So I took it super, super slow. And then everything was a win. It was, a lot of positive reinforcement. Eventually, like, other people would bring their horses, and we would ride together, and we started doing a lot of trail riding. I don't think I didn't do ring work per se for the horse show for like 2 years before I actually like did actual true, everything was trail ride before that. We rode on the road, we rode on beaches, we did all off-roading stuff before I ever put him in a ring. So, and just during that time, I just think of just dealing with, like deer jumping out at you, or cars driving by, or the crashing waves as we're in the, because I live by the ocean. He handled everything just so perfectly and just so easily. One of the things he loves the most is snow. So he loved riding in the snow and playing in the snow. And he's Shire Cross, so I guess that makes sense. He likes to play in the winter. And I came from a background where you did it until it was, I don't want to say it was perfect, but you did it until you were satisfied with what you were working on. And with him, it was always little wins. It wasn't like if I was working, oh, I don't know, working on canter departures and working on getting the correct lead, I'd get a couple strides. You know what? That was it. That was just enough. And we just took our time with that. So, and now, I mean, we're working on flying lead changes now, but it just, that basis and that groundwork and that time with him has made him just be so smart, and that it's made this part of teaching him how to jump. Not that I got the okay to, it's made it so much easier having him to learn how to jump. It's having that groundwork. So, but it was really cool. And then I started throwing everybody on him. Like, all my friends I'd call, come ride Rask. Bring their kids. Come bring your kids. Come. I would do like little pony line lessons. And even at the horse shows, like, even though they had their own horses, hey, do you guys want to ride Rask? And I always offered them up. And I know it sounds kind of like, like laborish, but it was just like, just fun stuff. I would walk the kids around like on a lead line around the showgrounds just so they could just enjoy him. So it was, I mean, the fact that I can put anybody on him and I trust him with everything.
That's so wonderful. What a good type of horse. Those draft crosses, you really can't do better as far as the chill brain goes.
And it's funny because he's a PMU baby.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so PMU, for I don't I mean I'm hoping people in the equestrian world knows what PMU means, but it's, in case you don't, it's pregnant mare urine, and it's basically he came from a PMU factory farm distribution up in Canada. So he's a product of that process of making Premarin. So either you get a great horse or you get a little bit of a crazy. And I just lucked out with the great horse. So, but of course, then I was like, I don't know what he really is. I didn't know what he was when I first got him. I'm like, he's some type of draft. So I sent his mane into Texas, his hair follicles into Texas A&M. And I got the most crazy response back. Shire was obviously, that made sense. He's got beautiful feathers. He's a big chestnut. He's 17.2. He's built like a Shire. And then the next one was Turkoman, which is not even a breed that exists anymore. I believe that's like, I want to say that's Middle Eastern, almost like a thoroughbred. And then the kicker, which I just cracked me up, was Welsh Pony.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't see the
Yes.
Welsh Pony, but I mean, he was named Rascal for a reason. But yep, the Welsh Pony got me. I said, this is such a PMU thing.
Yeah, you never know what you're gonna get with those horses. So you mentioned that you've started jumping and you've started doing some shows and stuff like that. What what was your first show like?
So it was a schooling show in Rhode Island, and it's small, and I'm just gonna talk freely. The classes were cheaper, so I knew that if anything terrible were to happen, then I wasn't like blowing a ton of money at like big shows and the A circuit and whatnot. So he trailered there, and immediately it was localized. People just fell in love with him, and our very first show, we won all of our classes. And it was cool to see. I was like, I know it was just a schooling show, but in my brain I said, this is special. Like, I know it was a smaller show, but I'm like, this horse has something. So, and again, I wasn't even jumping at that point. So this was back in, I think, 2022 is when I first yeah. So 3 years after I bought him, a good solid 2 years of riding before I even put him into a show situation. I took him to that schooling show, and he just blew me away. And the best comment I received from one of the judges, I did a series that summer, at that same farm. She said, one things I loved about you is how much this horse trusts you. So that's probably one of the biggest compliments I've ever received from a judge. Not the ribbon, not the awards. It was hearing that, because I said, okay, I'm doing something right. And then he got kind of infamous after that.
Yeah. So when did you start posting about him on TikTok?
It was, I want to say, summer of 2022. That's when I really started to post about him. And I told him how the story, I was a nurse, and I told him how like how Rascal saved my life. And it got over, I want to say, 450,000 views within, I don't know, like a couple weeks, and like 59,000 likes. And since then, I've been kind of keeping up and showing his progress. And we started doing some local fairs, and then we upgraded our show to it's called the Tri-State Series. And then I started to dabble into some dressage last year, and he was High Point dressage horse because he's just so freaking cool. And then during that time, I always posted about all of our little wins. And I'm not talking show stuff. I'm talking like the vet. I was very transparent about how scared he was of the vet, or we would go on trail rides, like any little things. Even he used to go out with a pasture pal who was like 40 years old. He was a Clydesdale Appaloosa cross named Bubba, who apparently is still alive. It would just, little stories about them going out together, and he just grew a following, and it was pretty cool to see. So, like I said, this year our goal has now been jumping. Our vet has a specialist. His name is Dr. Enda. He is from Ireland, and he's an actual lameness physician. And like I said, I wasn't going to be jumping him unless I got the okay, especially with that old injury. And like I said, I'm not going to push him to being in pain, but if I got the clear to go, then I thought it would be something, because he loves to jump. We go jump on little logs on trails, and he would just bomb over it. And I said, oh man, I might even have an eventer here. So yeah, so Dr. Enda, he did an ultrasound, he watched him move, and he gave me the clear to go ahead and start. So that's where we are right now. So oh gosh, we're 2020. So in 3 years, we've moved from schooling shows, dressage. Now we're going to work on two-phase and do some hunter stuff for Shire.
That'll be fun. And yeah, if he's like being brave about logs and stuff out on the trails, you could totally get him into some 3 phases. Absolutely.
He loves hunter pacing. Like, that's his, like, he becomes like such a different horse. And all horses do this, right? Some horses are phenomenal in the ring, and then when they're not, like, they're like trail riding or hunter pace, they're completely different. And Rask is that guy. The minute we show up to a hunter pace, he acts like a super excited adventure. I mean, I'm sure as soon as I ever get him into a start box, he's going to be one that's going to be like, let's go, mom. Let's go, mom. And he's so brave. He has not backed off of anything I've thrown at him, whether it be water jumps, small little tables, logs. One of our favorite hunter paces has tires that make it into a dragon. Like the tires become like the back of a dragon.
Oh my gosh.
Doesn't even care. Jumps right over it. He's just so cool. So it's just neat how versatile he was. And considering that he was going to get put down because she couldn't handle him and was moving, like what a waste that this horse would have been, you know?
Yeah, that's so fun. And kudos to you too, because horses, like, they are, like, obviously there are animals that are predisposed to be more brave than others, but I mean, the second you overface a horse, you kind of destroy that. So the fact that he is that brave is a testament to your relationship and your training with him.
We're still working on the vet. the vet's still his bugaboo. I mean, like I said, I could probably make him jump over, like, I don't know, with bombs going off, like, or the other day we were riding in the indoor and the ice is sliding off the indoor. He doesn't even care 2 seconds. But man, when that vet truck pulled up, well, no, that's the one thing that we're still working on is his needle phobia and the fear of the vets. And it makes you wonder what happened. Like, what made this, that even our trust and our bond, although as better as it is, affected him so much that he reacts so strongly against, like, the vet, you know? And he knows, like, they pulled up the other day and he was, I mean, like, on high alert. And I was like, buddy, they're not for you. So now anytime they're there, they touch him and whatnot to help him kind of, desensitize him. But, and I don't want to say it was from his injury because it started before that. Does that make sense? Like his fear started before the injury. So I wish I knew what happened to him, but I literally, the previous owner knew nothing, didn't even know his age, hadn't seen him in 4 years. So as brave as he is, that the vet thing is definitely something that we're definitely working on.
Everybody has something. That was like something that I don't remember who told me that, but somebody said to me, like, even those upper level horses are being managed for something. Like, everybody's got some weird thing going on. As we're starting to wrap up here, if people want to follow along in your story and want to see what Rascal's up to, where can they find you?
You can find me on TikTok. We are Rascal and Friends. You might be Rascatillion. So that was his show name was supposed to be Rascatillion, but my vet put Rascal on. So your rabies and Coggins has to match your entry. So now he's Rascal. But if you see Rascatillion Friends in 6919, that we're on TikTok. We're also on YouTube. Same thing, Rascal and Friends 6919. We're on Blue Sky, and we are on Instagram. I think that's all of our social medias. TikTok's our number one platform, but we just started the YouTube stuff, and I'm just now beginning to kind of. I will say this, like I said, when I mean that Rascal's for everybody, Rascal legitimately is for everybody. And I think I've talked to you before about this. He doesn't care what the color of your skin is. He doesn't care your orientation. He doesn't doesn't care about any of that. All he wants to do is take care of you. And that's the reason I want to share him, because I think in this world right now, I think we need that the most, is that people are out there that to care for and love everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if you all enjoyed listening to Lindsey's story, I highly recommend going and following her. I personally love watching all of your videos. I think they're so sweet and fun. And I think with that, we'll talk to you later.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'll give Rascal lots of love, and give Jules some love for me too.
Absolutely, will do. All right. Thank you for joining us this week at the Horse Girl Gazetteer. You can find us online at Horse Girl Gazetteer on Facebook or Instagram, and Horse Girl Gazette on TikTok and Patreon. You can also email us questions or comments at horsegirlgazetteer@gmail.com. If you find yourself enjoying our content, please leave us a review and share the link with your friends to help others find their way here. Any and all support is greatly appreciated. Talk to you later.